In 1845, two ships set sail from England on one of the most ambitious expeditions in history. It was the height of the British Empire, and the goal was to discover and map the Northwest Passage in the Arctic. The importance of the Northwest Passage for 19th century commerce was directly tied to the need for faster and safer maritime routes between Europe and Asian markets, such as India and China. At that time, the main trade routes were extremely long and dangerous. Ships had to round the southern tip of South America via Cape Horn or pass through the Cape of Good Hope in Africa. Both perilous journeys subject to storms and treacherous seas that, if discovered, the Northwest Passage, an Arctic route through the ice, would allow ships to take a much shorter path between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. This would reduce travel time and transportation costs, as well as the risks associated with the existing routes. For European countries, particularly Britain, this meant a major advancement in trade and control over new strategic routes, increasing competitiveness and access to the lucrative markets of the East. In addition, controlling this route would bring prestige and political influence, as whoever dominated it would hold a global advantage in maritime trade. Thus, Sir John Franklin's expedition was driven by the desire to conquer this passage and strengthen Britain's economic and naval power. Aboard were 129 men, led by the renowned explorer Sir John Franklin, setting sail into the unknown, unaware they would become the protagonists of one of the greatest mysteries of the age of exploration. The ships, HMS Erebus and HMS Terror, were among the most advanced of their time, prepared to face the relentless cold. Reinforced with steel plates, equipped with steam engines, and stocked with provisions for 3 years, this expedition seemed destined for success. Franklin, a seasoned 59-year-old explorer, was confident that despite the challenges, the journey would be completed with glory. The sailors, optimistic, set off with bravery. But what awaited them in the Arctic was something no one could have predicted. The first few months were calm. The crew followed their course, aiming to map uncharted territories. However, as the ships ventured deeper into the Arctic, conditions began to worsen. The ice, initially a manageable obstacle, started to close in around the ships. The summer of 1846 came, but the ice did not relent. The vessels became trapped, condemned to wait for a thaw that never came. The crew remained calm. After all, they had provisions for several months and believed that in time, the ice would set them free. But as the days turned into weeks and weeks into months, hope began to fade. The sun disappeared beyond the horizon, and the Arctic winter brought an unrelenting darkness. It was the beginning of an endless nightmare. Now, imagine this. You're trapped in the ice, surrounded by a frozen white desert. The food begins to spoil. The cold seeps into your bones, and the eternal darkness makes sanity fragile. Despair slowly creeps in like the cold itself. This is how Franklin's crew spent 2 long winters, waiting for a release that would never come. In April 1848, 3 years after the expedition began, the men made a desperate decision. Captain Sir John Franklin was already dead, claimed by either the cold or starvation, and the survivors, led by Francis Crozier, decided to abandon the ships. With makeshift sledges loaded with supplies, about 100 men embarked on a suicidal march in search of survival. But this journey was impossible. The temperatures were extreme, and food supplies were nearly gone. Lead poisoning, caused by poorly sealed food cans, began to affect the crew's health. Hallucinations, weakness, mental confusion, the very ice seemed to mock them. And then, amid this nightmare, a terrible truth began to emerge. Evidence found years later suggests that as despair grew, the men resorted to the most unspeakable act, cannibalism. Human bones found at the site of the last march bore clear cut marks, indicating that the survivors had fed on their fallen comrades. An act of desperation that few dare imagine, but in that environment of death and madness, it became the only option. But was cannibalism the end of the madness, or just the beginning? Inuit testimonies, the native people of the frozen lands, suggest that Franklin's men faced something far worse than cold and hunger. Accounts speak of encounters with men gone mad, almost like wild beasts, wandering the ice in search of human flesh. Some believe that Franklin survivors not only succumbed to cannibalism, but were possessed by an ancient and malevolent force. Have you heard of the Wendigo? In the legends of indigenous peoples, the Wendigo is a spirit of winter, an entity that feeds on despair and transforms men into cannibalistic monsters. Could the despair of Franklin's crew have awakened something long dormant in the Arctic? Something that turned them from victims into predators? A force hiding in the shadows, waiting for those who dare to invade its frozen lands? But the questions don't stop there. Even after years of searches, British authorities never managed to locate the Erebus and Terror. Could something more sinister have happened? Some theories suggest that Franklin's expedition may have uncovered a dark secret in the Arctic. Something that should never have been revealed. One of the most controversial hypotheses is that the ships were on a secret mission far beyond the search for the Northwest Passage. What if Britain was after something more valuable? Something hidden deep in the Arctic? An ancient power? A weapon? Or perhaps an unknown artifact that could change the course of history? In 2014, nearly 170 years after the original expedition, the wreckage of the Erebus was finally found, followed by the discovery of the Terror in 2016. Both ships were astonishingly well preserved, as if the ice had frozen time around them. But even with these discoveries, many questions remain unanswered. Why were the ships so far off the expected route? And why did some of the crew's records, diaries, and letters seem to contradict the later findings? Some suggest that the crew may have been forced to follow an unplanned route due to secret orders. Others believe that the ships encountered something terrible, a force beyond human comprehension that led to their doom. Were Franklin's men merely victims of the unforgiving Arctic conditions? Or was there something more? Something still lurking in the frozen depths, waiting to be discovered again? Something that turned those men into more than mere survivors. The Arctic is a place of secrets. It holds not only bodies, but also truths that defy understanding. Sir John Franklin's expedition was never just about the Northwest Passage. It became a symbol of the unknown dangers humanity faces when it challenges nature, and perhaps something much older and more powerful than we can imagine. The fate of Sir John Franklin's expedition remains one of the greatest mysteries in history. Cannibalism, madness, conspiracies, or something beyond our understanding? What really happened to Franklin's men? What might still be hidden in the depths of the Arctic? Even today, the ice guards its secrets, and perhaps we should never try to uncover them. Subscribe to the channel and leave your comments and suggestions for future videos. Until next time, and keep exploring the world's mysteries right here on the channel.